Mindset is not everything to succeed in business. Actually, there's something deeper happening. Hi, I'm Morris from CreateGrowProfit.com, and today I'm speaking to Angela Johnson. Angela, thank you so much for being here today and for talking with me about mindset and trauma-informed marketing and how people succeed with their marketing message. Where are you calling in from?
So I'm calling in from Ogden, Utah, in the US. And thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
What you do in trauma-informed marketing perfectly describes what I'm seeing in the work that I do every single day. So, what kind of people do you work with today?
I work with service based entrepreneurs. A lot of the times they're what I call multi passionate rebels. And so they do more than one thing, they like to do more than one thing. Um, Things like, especially in the coaching world, we're told often have one signature offer, have one very specific niche. And that can definitely work for some folks. For folks like myself, however, if I have one signature offer for the rest of my life, I'm already dying of boredom. And that's never like, it's not interesting. So I work with a lot of neurodivergent folks, and yeah, service-based entrepreneurs who are solo entrepreneurs. They might have a small team, but they like actually having a small manageable business. And scaling for these multi-passionate entrepreneurs does not look like hiring, a huge team. It looks like how to leverage their time, how to leverage their skill set without taking that high touch connection that they really love having with their clients.
And what led you to doing this work that you do now?
I got laid off in 2008. And so my background's in marketing and copywriting, messaging. I worked for a lot of, interestingly enough, I worked every single corporate job I had was working for an entrepreneur who grew their business. So very small businesses. I think the most employees I worked with were maybe like 75. So very small companies, but it was always somebody who started making something quite literally in their garage or their basement. And then 20 years later, they have this thriving business. So I was always in their marketing department. So I should have kind of maybe guessed that my path would be leading to working with entrepreneurs because that was my background. But I got laid off in 2008 in the U.S. as the housing market was crashing. My partner and I had just bought our first home just a mere months before all this happened. And so I got laid off. I had no savings, no backup plan. And I thought, well, maybe this is the time. And I started actually creating women's conferences. I always thought that's what I wanted to do. And I was filling these events with hundreds of people, and people kept asking me, how are you doing this? How are you getting hundreds of people to your events? And I had, no email list. It was brand new, being an entrepreneur. And so I got a lot of marketing questions. And that's what started the business coaching and marketing specifically, that it was just like this breadcrumb trail. One thing led to another. So here we are, 17 years later, still working with entrepreneurs, messaging and marketing. That's my sweet spot. And of course, there's that foundation of mindset and somatic parts work, which is something that I integrate in all of my work as well. So that's the Cliff Notes version of how I got to where I am today.
Wow, you got laid off, and so what to do? Start a business.
Right.
So you succeeded in your business and you've been running your business for 17 years, right? We know the statistics. Most businesses don't make it in the first year, first 2 years, and the far majority of businesses don't exist anymore after 5 years.
Mhm.
So you being in business for 17 years, especially as a coach, why do you think it worked so well for you?
Gosh, that's a really great question. I wish I had an awesome answer. I think part of it is very stubborn. And after doing this for so long, um, because there are moments of like, maybe I could take this skill set into the corporate environment or get a job, or, it'd be nice to maybe have benefits and paid vacation, and what would I be trading for that? And so I think pure stubbornness. And I think the other thing is I really love my work. And I've not stayed stagnant. I've not just done the same thing. I'm definitely a person that evolves pretty rapidly. And as my business has evolved, I think it keeps it engaging and interesting. And yeah, and I think at the end of the day, I really love the work that I do. I love the impact that it makes. I love teaching. I love seeing the the spark that happens for people when they realize that what they want is actually possible, and it's much simpler than maybe they have thought. And I can help facilitate that simplicity, and that simple approach to business.
I opened this episode by saying mindset is not enough to succeed in business. The reason we started with this topic is because of words.
Hmm.
People use words and phrases to describe different things, but the issue is that not everyone understands the same thing when they hear the exact same words.
Hmm.
So what's the problem around the mindset mantra in business?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of times when people say, well, you have a mindset issue or money mindset issue, I think we need to define what does that actually mean? Because I think that's a really easy go-to scapegoat of, well, there's something not working, and so it must be you. It must be your mindset, rather than actually questioning. And a lot of times in the coaching world, like these one size fits all strategies of like, if you do these 6 things, then you'll have 6 figures. And I use that as an example because when I first started my business, I had my whole 6 steps to 6 figures, program. I thought that everyone could do it if I did it. So I understand that very much. And it's really tempting to want to have this one size fits all. It's really slick to market. However, the question that we need to ask is, if this doesn't work for everyone, then we've got to be more adaptable. So going back to why mindset is such an issue is, instead of questioning the formulas, instead of questioning, maybe this isn't the strategy, maybe this isn't the fit for me, then a lot of times we're told by the very experts that we're hiring, well, if this isn't working for you, then you must have a mindset issue. Instead of taking accountability of like, let me actually get more creative and actually coach you and actually help you, instead of just giving you, the client, this one size fits all answer that essentially keeps blaming the client if they're not reaching, their success goals. And I know this very well because I spent over $250,000 over about 6.5 years on coaches, programs, sponsorships. Like, I was doing all the things and I could not get past a certain income amount.
Hmm.
And that's really what started opening my eyes to, wait a second, I'm hiring all these high ticket coaches because I thought that's what I'm supposed to do, but I'm getting the same regurgitated advice. And it was this flow of like coaches, coaching coaches, coaching coaches. And it was like, but where is this source of information coming from? Who's who's inventing this formula and why does it work? Does it actually work, or is it just because people are really great marketers saying that it works? And then we want the solution, right? We want the formula to work for us. So that's what really started opening my eyes to, I think there's something missing here and I don't know what it is. And so that's when I started my deep dive. And this was back in 2015, 2017, to there's something more happening. And I, again, I don't know what it is, but in 2020, I started connecting the dots about the impact of our nervous system. And so when people talk about trauma informed care, it's often kept in mental health field, healthcare field, but it's so misunderstood that we don't understand how, no, our nervous system is what's actually driving our business. And so when people say, this is a long answer to your question, but when people say mindset work, if they're not including somatics, as in the body, like how does it feel in the body, or if they're not considering the nervous system, then mindset is only a small portion of it. Because I can look at myself in the mirror and do all the affirmations and do all the things, but if I'm not paying attention to my nervous system responses and how it's feeling in my body, strategy will only take me so far. Mindset work will only take me so far. So when people say mindset work, it's like, well, tell me what you mean by that. Because when I say mindset work, I'm including an entire deeper foundation of nervous system care and trauma responses, and not just thinking positively. And not that there's room for that too, but I think we need to go deeper to really understand why we do the things we do and why we don't do the things we know we should be doing.
Do you have an example, like a simple day-to-day experience that coaches or service providers, who find clients through online marketing, how does it show that their nervous system is sabotaging their business?
So I'll use myself as an example. So what I didn't realize is, for years, I would And this, I see this a lot. So the fun part of business is making the plan. We've got the whiteboard and the charts and the sticky notes, and it's going to be so amazing. And where do people freeze? Where do people either get distracted or start complicating things? They go into perfectionism mode. Like, there's a pattern that often happens the moment it's time to implement and get visible. And for myself, I need to notice that I would, and part of it is, being a neurodivergent entrepreneur, which I didn't understand until a few years ago. So there's an element to that. When I really just look at my nervous system, it was like, I am freaked out about getting visible. And so I would invent all sorts of very convenient, very sophisticated strategies to avoid that visibility. A couple common things that I see, and I mentioned them before, but like perfectionism. Um, I see people, and I've done this myself, so I'm using myself as an example as well, is I love the creating part. And even as a marketing teacher and a marketing expert, I don't love to do my own marketing. It takes diligent dedication to sit my butt down in that chair, this chair, and actually implement the marketing, actually put the plan in action instead of creating another plan. So people, I call it the constant creation cycle. I'm going to create the thing. Oh, but it's not good enough. Or something, again, just mysteriously keeps happening at this same point every time I have something to share with the world. So they just create, create, create. So it gives people this illusion. See, I'm busy. I'm doing all these things. But wait, why isn't money showing up? Why am I not getting clients? It's because nobody knows about it. Because we keep stuck in this creation circle, and we have to interrupt that creation and actually market it and put it out there into the world. So when we think about things like this, it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. But when we take a step deeper, it's okay from a nervous system perspective. And now that I understand what's happening in my body and in my nervous system, there was absolute fear of being seen. And so I created and invented all sorts of very convenient, sophisticated ways to avoid that discomfort because it didn't feel safe in my body to be seen. And this can happen, like, for example, if people want to raise their rates. That's another common place that I see is, they know that they need to make more money, that their services are worth more. And I'm not talking about, let's charge a bajillion dollars just because a high ticket coach told you that, charge what you're worth. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about sustainable income. There is value in what you're creating, and there's aligned and resonant pricing. So that's what I'm talking about. But when someone is just really having a hard time, it's like they want to keep giving discounts. They want to keep over delivering. They feel really shy about actually charging the price that they know they need to charge. And so mindset work with this somatic element, this nervous system aspect, is like, well, what would feel safe for you? What does your body need and your nervous system need to feel safe and secure in charging that? And there's a big difference between discomfort and unsafety. But oftentimes our nervous system interprets any sort of discomfort as, oh, I'm not safe. And this is all subconscious. This can be so subtle. And so then we convince ourselves of, oh, it's unsafe, or I don't want to do this. And it's like, well, am I willing to actually just be a little uncomfortable, but knowing that I'm still safe? And that's the place that we want to get to. Is discomfort is great, but if it's to the point that it starts shutting your nervous system down, you will absolutely sabotage yourself every single time.
And I think the biggest trap of it all is that listening to you sharing your personal example, it's kind of obvious. It's like, oh yeah, of course, she's afraid of being seen, so she's sabotaging herself or making up all these excuses. But the trap, I think, is that we don't see it in ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
or we think that's not what's happening in ourselves because we've been blind to it for all our life.
Right. Yeah. Well, and when you think about these patterns, I mean, these patterns have been with us for decades. This is not just something that happens overnight typically. This is something based on our conditioning, based on the culture we're in. Um, well, let me back up. So I work with a lot of women, and we know the statistics about the percentage of women who are sexually assaulted, just as an example. So women are walking around the world always on guard. I have to take considerations if I'm in a parking lot at night of how I'm going to get to my car safely. So this is the conditioning that I, as because of my gender identity and how I present to the world, that I have this constant diligence, hypervigilance, that I have to be on guard. Now, all of a sudden, I'm a marketer and I have this business. Now, all of a sudden, I'm supposed to change this lifetime of conditioning of keeping myself safe. Now, go be visible, go be out there, shout your message from the rooftops. And so that's one very, I think, apparent example. But even though I know marketing is not the same as walking to my car in the dark parking lot, my nervous system has received training based on conditioning that I always have to keep myself small and safe and protected. So that's one example. And this doesn't impact everybody the exact same way, but I think something like that, when we can see, like, oh, this is conditioning based on gender identity and expression in the world, how that might impact pricing. It might impact marketing. It might impact how often I do videos versus just posts on social media, as an example. Like, am I willing to be seen? And I think the question is, does my nervous system feel safe to be seen? Has it been supported to be seen? So that's just one example, but I think that can help um, just highlight, how can I get more curious about what has the conditioning that I've experienced and expressing that in the world? Like, how is that impacting my marketing? How is that impacting how I'm showing up in business?
Many times we don't need another marketing strategy. We don't need a new tactic. We don't need to revamp the funnel or have a different offer, because the first plan that we had has never truly been implemented. It has never been executed, never been tracked, never been measured,
Mm-hmm.
because something deeper was holding us back. When you work with someone, oh, first quick question. So if someone is listening to this and they recognize their patterns here, they're recognizing that's exactly what's been happening in their business and in their life, what is the first step to reach out to you and have this conversation with you? Where do they go?
Yeah, so you can go to my Instagram. It's Angela Johnson Biz. My website, angelamjohnson.com. I have some resources there. Um, some free resources, $9 resources, classes that are $100. I have several different things there, but I'm always bringing in this deeper piece of, you know, when you feel yourself stuck. And you use some language earlier that I want to circle back to, because I think it's so important, is because we can look at these behaviors as, oh, I'm sabotaging myself. And that would actually be my first invitation, is to start shifting that language, because from the outside and from the language that speaking of language, like, oh, I'm sabotaging myself. But are you, or are you protecting yourself? There's a part of you that's protecting yourself. And that shift can start inviting more curiosity and compassion, instead of, oh, I'm actively working against myself. It's like, wait a minute, there's a part of me, or my nervous system is responding in a very valid way. So, how can I work with that rather than keep judging that? And so, it's helping us get outside of those cycles of self judgment and cycles of shame and into more curiosity and compassion. So that's one place that people can start, is just one, pausing and noticing of, like, this is interesting. I notice I keep doing this. And rather than, we often go to self judgment. Oh, I can't believe it. What's my problem? I just need to try harder. Like all the things. It's like, what if working harder, and just what you were saying, it's like, what if your strategy doesn't need to change? What if you don't need a new offer? What if you don't need a new complicated funnel? What if we just paused for a moment and just noticed, I'm doing this thing again. I wonder, and I bet that there's very good reason. So what is one tiny action I can take to give myself a new experience? Because the thing that also happens is, when we get stuck in these cycles of self-judgment and shame, we just spin in that creation. I've got to do something more. I've got to work harder. But it's like, what if I could give myself a new experience? And the phrase I use is, when we witness ourselves in action, then that's how we're also starting to change our mindset. It's like, we're seeing ourselves, oh, but I'm taking the action. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I feel a little nervous, but I'm doing so. I'm taking the action from a place of, I'm trusting that I can get through this, instead of I have to reinvent my entire business or revamp my whole marketing plan. It's like, let me just take this baby step, this tiny action, and that can start giving ourselves new evidence that we can do it. It starts calming those parts of us down. That's like, I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. And it's like, again, approaching that with some curiosity. Of one, it's totally valid how I'm responding. It makes sense, even if we don't know why. And it can be really frustrating, especially when we see ourselves in this pattern and we're like, gosh dang it. Like, what gives? Like, what? I'm so tired of seeing myself do this. And I can get, it's really frustrating. It's like, okay, so just taking baby steps. Anyway, I shared a few things there, but that reframe of self-sabotage, which again, it's language that we all use.
Yep.
We really look into it. Is it self-sabotage, or I think it's self-protection. There's something that wants to be protected. And that shift alone can start opening up new possibilities and start shifting that pattern.
Yeah, thank you for picking up that language there on self-sabotage. And going forward, I want to stop using the word sabotage and replace it with self-protection. And anyone listening to my future episodes, please hold me accountable. If I bring up self-sabotage one more time, remind me of this. So once you helped people manage their nervous system better or become friends with the nervous system, what's the next step?
Yeah, well, it's a practice. And so when I look at a marketing plan, for example, like your marketing plan and your nervous system, they are BFFs. They are integrated. So it's not about, oh, I've managed my nervous system and then I can go do marketing, because we are going to be managing our nervous system every day, throughout the day. It's never going to be perfect. And the other point that I think is really important is our nervous system is reacting exactly as it should be to the world that we're living in. And so this is not about everything is roses and unicorns and I'm just going along, everything's fine. No, that's not our nervous system is not doing her job. Like, our nervous system is going to have ups and downs. But the thing we want to be paying attention to is, are we staying in this, what's called the hyperarousal or hypoarousal? So this like heightened, fight or flight, or the freeze or fawn response. We don't want to stay stuck there. And so if we're staying stuck there, then that tells us, okay, I've got to nurture my nervous system so that I can move forward and take action. So it's really a combination of, you're doing your marketing plan, and as you're going along your marketing plan, you're noticing, oh, I'm having this response. I'm noticing I'm feeling uncomfortable. And it's a moment to moment practice. And so it's not like, once my nervous system is managed, then I could do my marketing, or vice versa. It's, you're doing your baby steps, nervous system support, marketing action, nervous system support, marketing action, that kind of a thing. So nervous system, is definitely a part of it. But I think the other piece is, have a really simple marketing plan. There's so many things, especially in online marketing and all the tech and all the this and now AI, and all those tools can be great. But when we really get back to basics, like I always remind my clients of, most of my clients, they are not looking for 1,000 clients tomorrow. Most of them can have a very healthy multiple six-figure business with 20 to 30 clients. And so I think it's really important to recognize, and again, this is depending on different business models, there are many different options here. But it's important to recognize that, what if we don't need all the bells and whistles? Because all that can actually distract us from the core basic marketing function. So how did we market before Instagram and all the things? It's like, we talked to people, we built relationships, we connected, we have collaborations, there are so many different aspects. And it's that like the slow and steady, just keep keep going instead of this feast or famine type of energy in our marketing. So I would just encourage people to just go back, and simple is better. I saw something the other day that I think is so relevant. It's something like, a simple business model is often perceived as playing small. And, and I was like, oh, that's so true. And simplicity can be very strategic. I like being a solo entrepreneur. Like, I'm not looking to scale. I do not want to be managing team. Like, that has never been my wish. And other people, maybe their version of scaling looks different, and that's fine. Um, but going back to just simple, simple, simple. And as soon as it starts getting overly complicated, then really consider maybe it's not you that's the problem. Maybe it's the business model or the marketing plan or whatever it is. It's just too much. Get the basics.
It makes sense on paper to say, learn from someone who's one or two steps ahead of you. But the thing is, that's like saying, lift in the gym, lift the same weights as the person who is stronger than you. You can't lift their weights, right? So, sometimes I feel like we look at these marketing systems from people who are ahead, and we think if we take the exact same marketing system, we're also going to be there. But we forget that they're at a different stage with different resources. And if we take their exact system, it's going to break us. It just doesn't fit, or not even break us in the sense that we're too weak or not good enough for it. It's just a question of infrastructure and setup.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you said that because a lot of the things that we see, and I get it, and I scroll through and like, oh, they just had a 7-figure launch, or they this whatever. There can be that like little like, oh, how did they do that? And what the version we see is all you need to do are these 5 things, and I just did this, this, and this. But what we don't see are the years often of trial and error, or the team behind the scenes, or when someone says, I'm just going to use 7-figure launch as an example. It's like, well, what was your actual profit? Like, how much did you pay yourself? Because if you're only netting 25% of that or taking home, 20% of that, well, I can do that without all these other expenses. And so, really taking a look at it can feel so sexy and so mesmerizing, but just really have that critical thinking mind of, but what am I not seeing? What are the behind the scenes, or the time, or the team, or the dollars that it took to create this? And is that what I want? And is that how I want to create that? There are a lot of paths to create the things, especially if we're talking about income. There are a lot of paths to create that.
What has been your favorite way to attract clients, or the one that aligned the most with you?
Yeah, I built my business hosting workshops. And so to that, when COVID hit, that was a very, very interesting time. But that's how I really started creating, my email list. I got people in a room together. I love facilitating workshops and creating that kind of environment. So that's what I did. And so then I adapted that to online models. So I teach, for example, a monthly workshop. It gives people a taste of my work. They get to have an experience for usually less than $100, and then see if they want to do other things with me. So that's been my go-to. And then I would say my second strategy has been speaking, whether that's speaking at conferences and then podcast speaking. Those are my two favorites. So workshops and speaking are my two favorite. And I follow that up with, the traditional like social media, email marketing. But even when people go to my social media, you'll see that I'm not the most consistent on social media. I have phases where I'm consistent, and then it's like I need a rest, and then phases. So I know that when I want to grow my business, I focus on building relationships, hosting workshops, and speaking.
Do you think that's a good strategy for a new coach, trying to get to the first 10 clients, let's say, if they do that as well?
I think that there are variables with that. What I would not recommend is, you know, try to build a social media following to 1,000 people or whatever it is, because we all start from zero, right? We all start with that first person on our email list or that first follower. And this is contradictory, depending on who's giving the coaching advice. But a lot of times when people think, oh, I've got to build this following and then I'll get a client, it's like most people don't have the kind of time it takes for that, people to follow you, people to trust you. And so you've got to build some sort of, I call them mini experiences. So are you inviting people to a call, whether that's a one-on-one call, to a I'll say webinar in air quotes, because webinar has been going back to language. It's like now it's code for basically sign up for a 90-minute sales pitch. And I'm not talking about webinar in that sense. I'm talking about giving real value and having an invitation, but being transparent about that invitation. But people usually need to experience you somehow. What do you know? How can you help people? And then I would just tell people, just let people know in your immediate circle what you're up to. And that can be really kind of scary because it's like, am I telling my friends and family that I'm now a coach? And what does that mean? And so let it, networking, building relationships, letting people know, and then reminding ourselves that our coaching practice happens one client at a time, as maybe nerdy as that sounds, but it really is that one person and then the next person. And I think we can get really overwhelmed when we're looking at that bigger goal of, okay, I want 10 clients who each pay me $1,000 a month, as an example, right? Okay, that's a great vision, but how do we do that? You start talking to one person and then the next person and then the next person. And online strategies can absolutely help if you have the budget and the team to do ads or things like that. Great, more power to you. But most people I work with are either they don't have this nest egg. They're like, oh, great. I just have $50,000 sitting there that I can just experiment with, Instagram ads or whatever it is. I need to make money yesterday and I need to build this thing because there's no plan B. And if that's not you, if you do have plan B, awesome, great. I'm happy for you. But most of us are like, no, I don't have 6 months to build a social media following. Not that it needs to take that long. But how can I get a client within the next 30 days? And hopefully more than one client in the next 30 days. So simple, just going back to the basics, relationships.
Yeah, I really love that message, Angela, and I agree with you. So your website is angelamjohnson.com.
Yes, AngelaMJohnson.com.
And for anyone who wants to build a simple marketing strategy and really understand how their nervous system works, where they are protecting themselves, maybe in the wrong places, and how to work through that and actually just get to work, implement, please talk to Angela and go to angelamjohnson.com. And her Instagram is angelajohnsonbiz. Thank you so much, Angela, for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.